Hi. Well, last time I was talking about the hypothesis of revolutionary moments, and kind of the video ended abruptly. So this is the fourth part of the End of Capitalism and Its Alternatives lecture of the Marxian Economics lecture series prepared for the Middle East Technical University, Northern Cyprus campus. So this idea of the revolutionary moments was expressed by Lenin, and basically we are told, according to him, that the crisis of the economic system creates moments which could be in which basically an organized party leading the workers might transform the system. And well, by creating this hypothesis, Lenin basically argued, well, how workers will actually transform the system is a question in Marxian school itself. And from economics side, the idea is the economic conditions will in the end give workers this ability to organize and also creates necessary political infrastructure for their for taking the system over and basically regulating the economic system, including institutional structures. I mean, take over the current business administrations and transform it into a different type of institutional administrations serving to the social needs. Although how this transformation will occur is not something Marx has written on, basically. But mainly the workers, once they are organized enough, they will find base. But in case of Lenin, it's kind of turned into a point that in order to have workers organized, well, that organization should be started by a particular group, which is called intelligentsia, or the people who are intellectuals, and then a certain segment of the workers should join them. So, in a way, now it's not the workers that are creating the infrastructure and supporting that infrastructure, but rather the party itself is organizing workers and create the potential inside of the workers. So without these organizations, the workers won't get that potential. While in pure Marxian understanding, although it's not that clear to be fair, but if we read Marx, we might get the inference workers get the potential, and after they got the potential, they will create the necessary organizations, which they will do themselves, basically. So here we have we can see kind of the transformation of the ideas from Marx to Lenin. And Lenin certainly accused Marxists of his time even before he made the revolution in 1917 in Russia, being economicists, so putting too much faith in economy. Economics is important, but what happens in a political scene is ultimately the path to transform the economic and social system, according to him. So these are the ideas. What do I think? I think Lenin is a man of his time, and his revolution has specific characteristics which might to some extent justify him, maybe. But I personally still think that socialism, as we understand it, as Marx understands it, certainly needs organization, a certain organization level and control level of the workforce by itself. So workers should be themselves be able to control the economic and political system. They should not be led by the party. They should be leading the party, basically, in a way, collectively. And I think a sufficiently organized society should be able to control and lead the organizations, including the parties. But still, in 20th century, Lenin was very influential, and this idea that a vanguard party, a leading party, is necessary for transformation of capitalist system into a socialist system was, well, very much accepted by the communists of the 20th century. Whether this idea should be revised or not might be a question. I mean, in the end, all the ideologies might revise themselves. However influential his ideas might maybe revise also. So that's a question that could be left for them. Political movements and political side of the Marxian economics. So I'm passing it. But if you are interested, I'm more than welcome to discuss Lenin's views in general, for better or for worse. Although I will come back to Soviet Union, and there we will see a little bit more Lenin. Now we can come to the word system theory and their contributions. Note that word system theory consists of or introduces several eras, several different systems that define world economic system, which starts as a regional system and then spread to world. And each of these systems have different characteristics. But there are also some common characteristics of each of these systems, and most importantly, each of these systems have expansionary and contractionary phases. And there's an article actually on Arigi which is actually talking on both general characteristics of the contractionary phases, but also on specific characteristics of the contractionary phases of the different world economic systems, UK-led capitalist system and US-led world capitalist system. Well, one important point is in the expansionary phase, usually the system is expanding, and that means it has reached to new resources, which includes human resources. For example, expanding to American continent, expanding to Africa, China, India, economically. It might cause some distress in the regions and even in the sectors it expands. But for the people who are within the system, that means actually the basic problems of the system can be to some extent be relieved. The workers already within the system might benefit from this expansion. The capitalists might benefit. Different countries who have different development levels might all benefit from this expansion at first. But as the limits of the current system's expansion is reached, everything turns around and the system will again tries to recreate its problems and more severe versions of these problems actually. And actually, in all cases, some additional problems in his history, in decline of each system has created a unique additional problem. Plus, the old problems also re-emerged. In UK system, labor was created as new problem. In the at first in the Dutch system, which lead to UK system, basically, that's the 18th century. The difficulty of keeping the trade between the countries alive, preventing countries isolating each other, isolating themselves from the world economic system. That was one problem which needed solution. Then in UK system, this problem re-emerged, plus also an additional problem, containing labor capital problems, disputes emerged as a new problem. And in decline of the US capitalist system, an additional problem has emerged. The preventing isolation is one problem. Containing labor capital problems, discourse, polarization is another problem. And the third problem, that's environmental crisis, has emerged. And contractionary phases is usually taught as the phases where the game was previously positive sum game. So when you add up the gains of everyone, it's positive. But in the contraction phases, the gains turns first to a zero sum game. So when you add gains of everyone, that becomes gains and losses of everyone. You got zero. So whatever some people gain, other people lose, and then to a negative sum game even. And in this phase, basically, initially you might have a semi-restoration of the system, and that the semi-restoration happens because relatively strong members of the system, both in terms of strong states, in terms of strong social segments, also in the different countries, they are able to reshape the system to restore their gains. But that restoration is gained by making weaker elements, weaker members, weaker countries, and weaker segments of society to lose from it. Like in the late 20th century, where basically the wages of the even in the United States, wages of the lower income groups remain stable, or some of them have slightly fallen. Or in 1980s and 90s, especially the relatively weaker countries, they had this their income, their growth rate has collapsed basically. They have experienced a significant period with a high distress. Now the distress is actually led mostly by the developed countries, which means actually this initial order, which was actually was able to make the stronger country to get benefits, might not be anymore functioning that well, while because those countries themselves don't have anymore that high growth rates. But initially you might have a system restoration where strong countries continue to have a high growth rate, while weak countries are extremely become more distressed. And that stress level, that those problems that initially in the restored system only affecting the weak countries might in time rise up and also take one by one first the countries that are moderately strong, and then even the top countries of the world might be taken over by those problems. Another aspect of the contractionary phase is it is very much let's say supported by the financial system. Usually you have one or two countries that are actually emerging as potential new hegemonies, new leaders of the world system. They emerge because they become the production centers. As production, the problems in the center of the system make production in that center less profitable, less suitable. But the capital is still concentrated in that country, and basically the people who own capital in that country are sending that capital to the potential newcomers. I mean, potential new powers. So the old hegemony, which is still the hegemony, is financing the newcomers, which in case of UK, for example, many US investors has supported the United States, basically, and to some extent. I believe to some extent also Germany, but more United States heavily, and Dutch have also financed, for example, UK, basically, the England, basically. So these are the common characteristics, but there is also some evolution, some progress throughout the world system cycles, and we will talk on that in the next part. See you in the next part.